Within human nature, there is perhaps no stronger emotion than our innate desire to see our bloodline thrive. Unlike animals, humans go to great lengths to ensure our descendants are well taken care of after our own deaths, come what may. Sometimes, our kids really let us down. For example, consider Crown Prince Rudolf of Austria, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire in the late 19th century. Although he was a promising reformist who would have sought to reconcile with the Serbs, Prince Rudolf had so much beef with his side chick that they killed each other. This left the conservative Archduke Franz Ferdinand as heir to the throne, who, as we know, got no-scoped in Serbia, igniting World War I and ultimately resulting in the complete dissolution of the Habsburg dynasty and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Massive L for the Habsburg children. On the other hand, sometimes our descendants step up to bat for us. When Oda Nobunaga inherited leadership of the Oda clan from his father, Oda Nobuhide, many of the clan's retainers thought Nobunaga was a real doofus, a buffoon even, but they were proven wrong, as Nobunaga locked in quickly, demonstrating the military prowess that set the stage for the unification of Japan by his protégés. A huge, unexpected W for the Oda clan and people of Owari province. For better or worse, we count on our descendants to carry the torch for us when we die, so that they may build upon our legacy, forge their own heroic stories, and bring honor to our bloodline. And I now have the honor to introduce someone who did absolutely none of these things, whose name shall live forever in infamy. In 2003, a young child was born to a loving and well-to-do family in the United States. Beloved by his grandmother, a young chap named Sad Nefarious learned to admire his grandmother's ability to observe financial self-control despite her relative wealth. By observing a simple lifestyle, Grandma Nefarious accumulated substantial capital, well over $1 million, with the expectation that she would set up her heirs for a comfortable life. When Granny ditched Earth for better friends up above in May 2024, young Nefarious left his college campus at the end of sophomore year to attend her funeral. Surrounded by friends and family, Grandma went into the ground with a smile on her face. She taught her heirs well, and her favorite grandchild had grown mature and responsible. Shortly thereafter, Nefarious learned that his grandmother had left him a considerable inheritance of $800,000. As a rising junior in college, he quickly considered Lambos, strippers, Charlie, and savage drip, but Nefarious put these musings aside. He was not some frat boy majoring in communications, but rather a sophisticated math major whose parents expected him to use this windfall responsibly. He had heard horror stories of people blowing their inheritance with lavish spending and accumulation of debt, and our man wanted no part of this, for he would not piss on Grandma's legacy. Much to his parents' satisfaction, Nefarious dropped $100,000 into a high-yield savings account, which would net him approximately $5,000 per year in interest. With the other $700K, he considered long-term investment options that would set him up with generations of wealth. After substantial DD fueled by energy drinks and paid subscriptions to stock-picking newsletters, Nefarious determined that Intel, ticker INTC, was grossly undervalued. According to his DD, Intel's ability to increase its net profit 9% year over year, despite increasing costs of research and development, was extraordinary and predicated more good things to come. More importantly, he surmised that Intel's investment into semiconductor manufacturing on US soil and its long-standing contracts with the US government put Intel on solid footing for the upcoming China-Taiwan war. When the Chinese stormed the beaches, Taiwan's semiconductors manufacturing plants would likely be key terrain, potentially even objectives, due to how important those plants are in the global semiconductor supply chain. Nefarious anticipated that Nvidia and AMD would be forced to manufacture in the US long before a war begins, avoiding Taiwan completely in order to ensure their supply chain wouldn't be obliterated when the Chinese seize the means of chip production. Or worse, when the plants get destroyed by Chinese bombers. With a trailing price-to-earnings ratio of only 17, Intel was clearly the perfect choice in this geopolitical landscape, and shares at $30 were just too cheap to pass up. He would make his grandmother proud with this mature, calculated choice. In the late morning of Thursday, August 1st, Nefarious went all in. With a $700,000 stack, our man picked up just shy of 23,000 shares for $30.45 each. With plans to hold long term, the big shot was confident he'd just secured his future. By the afternoon, the math major got his first taste of numbers being more than just an arithmetic problem, as Intel took a casual 2% dip, putting him about $8,000 in the hole off the bat. But while such numbers may sound painful to the average college student with negative 5-figure net worth, this was just a tiny, irrelevant dip in a much grander scheme. With Intel announcing earnings after hours, Nefarious was confident that the company would begin a new trajectory and reinvigorate the struggling stock. All he had to do was wait for market close, and CEO Patrick Gelsinger did not keep him in suspense. At exactly 4:01 p.m., Pat picked up the mic and decided it was time to get this over with. There was no way to sugarcoat it. Intel had spent the second quarter on the receiving end of the shaft. Analysts expected earnings of 10 cents a share, but Intel could offer only 2 cents a share if they ignored standard accounting practices. If they stuck to standard accounting practices, then their earnings were significantly worse, losing 28 cents per share. And more painful still, even if Intel continued to fudge their numbers with non-standard accounting practices through the next quarter, they still expected to lose 3 cents per share. As investors mourned the abysmal performance, Pat took a shot of cheap scotch and carried on. To turn things around, he announced that Intel plans to cancel its dividend completely in order to save money. It would also lay off 15% of its employees, or about 15,000 people, in order to reduce expenditure. And the employees that did not get shit-canned would no longer get free coffee and fruit at Intel offices, since the company couldn't afford to stock them anymore. Further savings would come from reducing research and development efforts. As CEO, he expected things to possibly get better in the next few years, potentially. As he dropped the mic and walked off the stage in shame, Pat took to Twitter to share some scripture that would allegedly guide him to prosperity or something. Even if we disregard the fact that Christ would definitely not have bag-held shares of Intel, when your CEO is asking for prayers for his company, it's time to update the resume. Investors were nettled. Here was the CEO admitting that their company was a bloated mess with a piss-poor income statement, and things would only get worse for at least the next few quarters before they get better. And his answer was to slash dividends, ramp down production, and pray. This was not what the boys wanted to hear. Shareholders criticized Intel's top brass, declaring all of them incompetent and greedy. Despite getting some government help from the CHIPS Act, the company managed to do nothing but get spanked by its own management failures. One current Intel employee who expects to get laid off also lamented that 15,000 people were about to lose their jobs, but the board members were likely going to stuff their pockets with further bonuses for this impeccable, courageous turnaround plan. Ultimately, no one was happy with the results. Not employees, not shareholders, and especially not Grandma. From the great beyond, Grandma Nefarious watched Intel shares swan dive in after-hours trading, losing 25% to about $23 within an hour. Her grandson's inheritance had been sliced up, and there was nothing she could do but watch and grieve. Despite his mental math telling him he just messed up, Nefarious was too afraid to check his account after hours. He instead waited patiently in early cope until the following day, hoping that the market would view the company's terrible performance as rock bottom, with nowhere to go but up. If investors could look ahead, they could potentially be convinced that this was a long-term hold, just as he had envisioned. But it would not be so. Intel shareholders continued to dump this dog, driving the price down even further to about $21.60. Over $200,000 of Nefarious's inheritance was vaporized. Bravely, our man took to WallStreetBets to provide the masses with a long-awaited update. He agreed that he had purchased Intel shares at the wrong time, but doubled down on his belief that this was a good long-term hold. However, he has yet to tell his parents of this fiasco and will seek to continue hiding it. Although they ask why he has been stressed lately, he cannot answer, lest his parents discover how their son blew up $200,000 of his dead granny's money with nothing to show for it. But Nefarious explained that he remains optimistic. His plan was always to hold, and that is what he has resolved to do for the next 10 years or longer. After all, if one looks at the long-term chart, he can see that Intel shares have thoroughly rewarded shareholders who bought 10 years ago with 30% losses. Even further back in time, Intel is now trading at prices first seen in early 1997, when less than 20% of US households had internet connection, 18 months before Pokemon Red and Blue were released in the US, and 27 years before Grandma died. He is under no illusion that the next 10 years will be easy for Intel. After all, on top of everything else, the company is almost certainly going to get sued for knowingly selling defective chips with 100% fail rates. Yet for some unspecified reason, most likely a double shot of cope, Nefarious maintains diamond hands. WallStreetBets users sympathize with Grandma Nefarious, grieving with her spirit over her grandson's garbage trading. They imagined how she must have spent years pinching pennies, saving sugar packets from McDonald's since JFK was president, just to make sure her family would inherit as much money as she could accumulate. Then, right when she dies, decades of scrimping get canceled out overnight by lousy DD. As of August 6th, Intel trades for approximately $20, the same price it traded for when the first Harry Potter book was published and Bill Clinton was president. Our hero's losses are just shy of $250,000. Despite all the college student's intentions to avoid frivolous spending on a Lambo in order to save and grow his wealth, he still wound up with the same amount of money as the irresponsible kids who pop inherited bands impulsively, just without the Lambo. But although Nefarious may have pissed away an Italian sports car worth of money or enough cash to finance his own frat house, we owe it to him to look on the bright side. 1. He did make the intelligent move to put his first $100K in high-yield savings, which should net him about $4,500, maybe $5,000 per year, which is more than he'll get from Intel dividend. 2. His Reddit karma exploded through the roof, and he received 119 Reddit awards, which do something. And 3. He unintentionally became a legend of WallStreetBets, and he is now permanently a part of our lore. In doing so, he single-handedly managed to make a bunch of other WallStreetBets traders feel better about their own losses, which even therapy cannot buy. Our man was last seen in the WallStreetBets prayer thread during the Japanese flash crash that sent ripples through global markets, sending VIX to COVID crash levels. There, the big man assured us that this wasn't his fault. But more importantly, it gave us proof of life, that sad Nefarious lives to bag hold another day. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe West Taiwan will indeed take a destructive shot at reunification, sending Nvidia and AMD scampering to Intel's facilities for production. If that happens, maybe Intel will even be able to poach some of Taiwan Semiconductor's technical experts to bring Intel's facilities on par with global needs. But let's keep it real. If the only way to save your portfolio is for China to invade Taiwan, you're already in trouble. Sad Nefarious, although you kinda shat the bed on this one, I admire your tenacity. Your story shall serve as inspiration to all those who inherit more money than they know how to invest, and encourage them to diversify. Your and your grandmother's sacrifice will not be in vain. My lord, I offer you the crown of regards. I humbly ask you to accept this coronation and take your place among the WallStreetBets legends.
Who wants to be king?
Thanks for watching, everyone. Check out my Patreon if you want to throw my kids some future beer money, and join our free Discord for some proper trading approaches. I hope to see you in the next Dank Trades video.